Welcome home, Enriquez family, to home where faith and family meet. My name is Father Tim Donovan, and I'm the parochial vicar here at St. Bonaventure in Huntington Beach. And this is Pam Hurwitz, my co-host. Welcome.
Thank you for having me again, and I'm so glad to be here on a Saturday. Awesome.
I love it. Beautiful still outside. Still not fall yet.
Yeah.
We're pushing for the fall, but even though we've already celebrated Thanksgiving, not Thanksgiving, Halloween, it's just still not fall yet, huh? So this family, you guys are from Seal Beach, just right next door. Okay, so you're our neighbors. You guys from St. Anne Parish. Beautiful. I was there for one summer as a seminarian, and we may have known each other from there. And then I celebrated one of my Thanksgiving masses there. I think we had crossed paths at that moment as well. So
2 years.
Yeah, welcome. I'm happy to have you here today.
Thank you.
I'd like to just maybe introduce yourselves to us. Maybe tell us your maybe name, how old you are possibly.
I'll start.
Okay.
My name is Elliot Enriquez, and I'm 45.
Nice.
I'm Ariana Enriquez. I'm 9 years old. I'm Teresa Enriquez, and I'm 7 years old.
And I'm Julie Enriquez, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am.
And normally the age one is directed towards the children, but that's good. I appreciate that, Elliot. That's good.
I apologize.
Because I know most people are like, oh my gosh, how old?
I heard you say
For self-revelation, I can say
age.
I'm 30, so
okay.
that's good. Actually, I'm almost 31. Can't believe how fast 30 went. Went very fast.
Yeah.
So, but I'm happy to be in the 30s. It's an exciting time. So,
What are some what are some things you guys really enjoy doing together?
Oh gosh, what do we like doing? Let's see. We like to clean our house, right? Like working together and cleaning up our house. Is that right?
We like to go on bike rides.
Oh,
Well, yeah.
okay,
bike
nice.
rides, gets
And
close to the
evening
beach.
walks. That's always a
Okay.
favorite.
Oh,
Although now
nice.
that the time is changing,
Yeah.
we're going to be walking in the dark.
Yeah, we were saying that.
We were, I like that because we have a 6:30 mass in the morning here, and when I wake up, it's still like pitch black dark outside. And sometimes it's just now I've been finishing the mass and it's still been dark outside. I'm like, goodness gracious, what is this? But that is a different change, huh? Yeah. Do you guys like when it gets darker earlier, or you like when it's light till late?
I like when it's dark.
You do? Me too.
Yeah.
We talked about that last time too. I really like when it's darker.
Just kind of gives you a chance to kind of feel like I don't like more time in together somehow. We were saying that both of us like that, and it seems like the night's longer in your home somehow. So I don't know.
So we just got through Halloween, and I heard you guys got like the most candy ever, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's
So much
crazy.
candy. We brought some to you,
I
Father.
know. I see it here. Just what I need. Some additional calories in my life. It's okay. It's starting to get cooler outside, right? So I have to add more calories to stay warm. That's always my favorite part about fall.
And I want to say too to our listeners that and for families, just how I think we are officially in November, which seems to get missed. Because already, I mean, I've seen so much on Instagram, and you just need to walk in Target, and we're just moving right into Christmas. I mean, some people were saying like literally October 31st, like, the minute Halloween was over, put the costumes away, bring out the Christmas tree,
Yeah.
And but I love November, and I love this idea of being more intentional about gratitude and about noticing blessing, and leading up to Thanksgiving is really my favorite holiday. I just love the idea that it's everyone around a table and there's not gifts, and it just seems there's football games, but you can deal with that. But so I hope that in the midst of, because it is so fun with the Christmas and the decorations and things like that, but that we can still really linger in November and in this idea of gratitude and being grateful and noticing blessing and talking about it around a table or however that happens in your home. But I'm just telling everyone, don't miss November. Don't step all over it just to get to Christmas. So.
Amen. And then we have Advent too. That we have to squeeze in there too somewhere, right? Which that one totally gets more maybe so. What is our favorite Thanksgiving dish? Do you guys have a favorite one?
Besides the turkey?
I like the cranberries.
Ooh, cranberries.
Fresh cranberries, huh?
Oh, you make a fresh
We make it.
cranberry?
I
Oh.
like the pumpkin pie.
Oh, that's the best, isn't it? Pumpkin pie. I had a pumpkin ice cream the other day. That blew my mind. It was so good. So,
And I think that is such a tradition, is the way even it tastes.
Yeah.
You go sometimes to someone else's home, maybe an in-law or whatever, and there's just a way that cranberries taste in your home, fresh, and that too is something that is a part. Food many times is a part of something that brings us together as families, and so I think that's a fun part also of the whole Thanksgiving thing. So.
my grandma, who has passed away since, would always make this like Jello dish that only grandmas could make. Right? It was like layered like Jello and
the
sour cream and
layered
nuts,
Jell-O.
and you're like, what is that thing? Right? It's such a strange dish, but it's funny because it still gets made. Like somebody picks it up,
Yeah.
and they
Okay.
still make it. It's a strawberry thing, and
Love
they
that,
all
yeah.
remember it, and nobody really eats it, but somebody during the dinner will come around with it and make sure everyone gets some. It's just it's a really funny thing. So nice pumpkin pie, and you want cranberries. How about parents? Do you guys have a specific dish you like?
I'm going with the sweet potatoes.
Oh, I was just going to say that too.
Oh, okay.
Yams. I love the
Yeah.
yams.
Okay.
Good.
Nice sweet
Or
potatoes.
mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
Corn on the cob. Everything's good.
Didn't they say that the potatoes originally came from Peru, right?
Yes, there's.
And so Ireland didn't have potatoes until
Right.
they went and got them from Peru
From
and brought
Peru.
them back to Ireland. So we thank you for that.
Well, okay, you're welcome.
Yeah, Elliot, your family from Peru, right?
That's right.
Celebrating also St. Martin de Porres feast day today.
Thank you. Yes.
That was the parish across from where we grew up. It was
Yes.
St. Martin de Porres, and we were San Antonio de Padua. So kind of lots of
Yeah.
Franciscan connections in there somewhere too. So which is very cool. So in the note of gratitude, though, I think that's a great place to start as we reflect on our readings today as well. Gratitude is always in the purview of a relationship. That there's always a gift giver and someone who's receiving that gift, And I think when we have gratitude, we're recognizing really the one who gives us these gifts and the one who really cares for his people. And I think God is the ultimate gift giver. Our very lives is the reality we're here, is that God has given us our lives. He's given us our very breath today, that we have this opportunity to even come together freely in my office today and record this podcast. So all of these things are great gifts from God. And do you know what they call God's care for us? There's a special fancy church word for it. It's called providence.
Ah,
And God's care for his people is called providence.
Providing.
He's providing,
Providence,
right?
yeah.
Providence. And so I think in this month of November, it's great to always call to mind that, like being aware of how God is caring for us, caring for our families, caring for us and providing our meals. And I mean, even bless us, O Lord, for these thy gifts, which we're about to receive from thy bounty, right? That God has given us this food and that peace. So, and we hear in our first reading of this widow who was kind of worried that she was going to run out of the only thing she had left and she was going to pass away. And then Elijah there, I believe, invited her to go that extra piece and to trust that God would care for her too. And sometimes when we have so little, we fear giving it away because we trust that there's just going to be nothing left for us to have. When we do give it away, then our hands become open then, to receive something new in God's providence. And what do we think about that first reading?
Well, when I read that reading, I had a lot of thoughts that came to mind. And one thing that I learned when I was looking a little bit further at this is that at this time, when this story took place, there was a severe drought going on.
Right.
And so, commodities were growing scarce. And, in these times of almost desperation, when there's not a lot, I think a sense of selfishness can kind of naturally come in, and you kind of squirrel away what you have, and you get a little more selfish than you might normally be.
well, you're in survival mode, right?
You're
Yeah.
like
Yeah, it's like that kind of
in
impulse.
survival, right. And so here in the story, we have a widow and her son, and all that she has was a little bit of flour and a little bit of oil, and that was probably just enough to feed her and her son, right? So Elijah arrives into town, and he asks her for some water and bread to eat. And this widow, who has no extra, she really has nothing to spare. She gave what she had to Elijah, and just that sense of giving. And I noticed that same sense of giving in the gospel reading, which I can talk about in a minute. But I was going to have our daughter Mariana read a little bit from this liturgy of the word with children.
You know what else too? I'm going to
Yeah.
kind of talk a little bit about the giving also because I think it is really hard for today's family to kind of be open to living like that,
Right.
especially with college in the loom and, the costs, Orange County families, trying to be responsible,
Absolutely.
thinking about, so it is very hard to, when you're so, like you said, pressured in what we feel is surviving, you know what I mean? What we would feel is surviving, which is such, for so many, over the top,
Yeah.
way more than that. But it's crazy because I can remember when because I was a youth minister for many, many years, and just my salary and things, were at just a certain level, and we got our one daughter through college, and we just were looking, scratching our heads, my husband and I, about like, just our son, and but not wanting, not, and then you feel like, do I get another job? Do I, da 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 da, and I'll just never forget, somebody just who's could be listening to this podcast, like, called us and just said, we want to pay for Joseph's education, and it just like, I mean, it was an unreal gift. I mean, it was just we were so unprepared for that, and I thought, man, I would have lived differently. I would have been more, I mean, you don't know. It was so nice to be on the other end of that generosity from someone. Yeah.
Wow.
And
I've always noticed that in my life too, that the moments that I'm clinging to my things, even as a seminarian, we had like basically nothing, and I'd be like, okay, here we go, I want to give this away or invest in this ministry or something with my life. Then like weeks later, something would show up, and like a check from the Knights of Columbus, something like, this is weird, right?
yes,
but it was in the moments that I clinged, then really those like sources would dry up, and they wouldn't be able to be flowing in as much, A quick story about the CFRs as well, Franciscan Friars of the Renewal. I discerned with them for a little bit, and they told us a story. I don't know if you're familiar with them at all.
No.
The gray friars, they call them. They have long beards and shaved heads. I kind of look like one of them, just without the habit. And they were saying that one time, this is so crazy, girls. They were saying that they were praying during their holy hour. They needed a new car, and these guys live like radical poverty, like only what the people of God give them to live on. So they needed a new car, a car that worked. They don't really take new cars. They're only like, they're really like, but just get them where they need to go. And so they were praying during the holy hour for it. And then all of a sudden when the holy hour was done, the phone rings. And it was this other group from like Minnesota or something, calls them and says, we were just praying, and the Lord told us that we needed to send you this car for you guys to use,
Wow.
Oh, gosh.
And I don't think that those things happen outside of places of real trust and providence and need, like I don't think sometimes a lot of those things happen in our lives because we do have a lot of it taken care of and we have it planned and all of these things. Even as Dawson priests, I mean, we cover a lot of our own expenses with the money we receive from working at the church and stuff like that. So I think it does close us down to providence in some ways, having it kind of taken care of. But there's moments like that where you just have no other way, then God can in his providence come in very striking ways. Isn't that isn't that a cool story? I always was like, I was so shocked by that one,
And I love too how they say a lot of the monks, the what is it, like the feeding, they have like the beggar's bowl. And
Yeah,
they
the
only
Tibetan ones,
take
yeah.
out, they just take a certain size bowl, and they trust every day that God will fill it. And but they don't want the excess either, because that just can tend to get in the way. I mean, then I remember too, another story that was kind of crazy is that my dad was the executor of a will, and somebody had passed on a membership at a very, very nice golf club to him. And so he started talking to us about it, and he was saying, what, I don't want this. I just don't think I want this right now. And I said, well, why, Dad? And he said, because I'm going to have to think I have to play golf all the time. It takes like an entire Saturday, and it's just going to complicate my life. And I'd rather be doing other things, but I'm going to always feel like, so he decided to share. I have 3 brothers, okay, who all love to golf, okay. And so he decided to share with us that he gave the golf. He was able to give that to someone else. And my brother's about I can't even explain the dinner where I think it was like at a Thanksgiving too.
Oh no.
And he just said, no, he goes, I don't want to complicate your lives. Like, I don't want to, trust me, be home with your families, do things, don't. So there is something also to not, to being, good stewards of, what we have as well. So that's another part of the blessing.
And God really comes through in our moments of need, which I think as Americans, we have so much of our needs taken care of so many of the times, through our jobs and through our own efforts and things. It's the providence maybe we'll have a little harder time breaking through some days. So shall we read the gospel?
Who gave more, the wealthy Jews or the old woman? The wealthy men gave large amounts of money, but they could easily afford to do so. Their generosity made little difference to the quality of their lives. The old woman gave only 2 coins she had. She gave everything and was left with nothing. It wasn't the amount that they gave that mattered to Jesus. It was the value of their gift. What does this story teach us? God values whatever offerings we make to Him. When we make them with love, it isn't the size of our offerings that matters, but the love with which is given. Everything we do or say in our homes, schools, shops, cars, or playground can be offered to God as a sign of our love to Him.
Beautiful. You know what that reminds me of, right, when you said that, was Mother Teresa. She used to invite people. She used to say to them, it's not about doing big things, but it's about doing small things with big love. I think that's always reminds me, like, sometimes we have those grandiose plans, but really what the world changes the world is those small things, but with great love, like the widow who only had those 2 coins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my husband has a pretty neat story from a trip he took to Peru.
Well, it was more of an observation, really. Almost 25 years ago, I went off to Peru. I must have been, maybe my early 20s, and I stayed with my grandfather for 2 months, and he took me around to visit relatives, people I've never knew existed, cousins of cousins, uncles, and so forth. And what I noticed is that a lot of these folks, the ones that did have a lot, weren't as open as compared to those that didn't have much. The ones that didn't have much, they opened they opened their homes with big hard open arms. They allowed us to come in. They gave what little they had to us. But the ones that had, big house, they had resources, wealth, they weren't as open. I noticed they were more suspect. Like, why are you here? Or who are you? What And I felt that, and it was interesting because I could see the difference in that. People who with more wealth, they tend to, not want to give more, whereas those that don't have much, they tend to give almost everything.
Yeah.
So it was just an observation that I was telling my wife about.
It's super interesting. I was reading, I taught the kids over at the school about St. Francis, and he has a quote. He says something like that. He says, if you have a lot of property or things or money, he says, you're also going to have a plan to protect them.
Yeah.
But if you don't have anything, nobody can starve a fasting person, and no one can take anything from someone who has nothing,
Right.
And so there's that freedom that comes from this kind of just kind of handing it over. And
I spent a lot of time when I was in ministry in little cities outside Tijuana, and we used to build homes. You remember that?
That's right. I went down there a couple times.
The Flora Zone, and I remember the first time coming into one of these neighborhoods, which that's a loose term, villages, I guess, and so many of the people were living in just makeshift, almost like garage doors, just something that was barely even shelter. And we used to get there at about 6:30. We'd cross the border. We'd meet at like 4, and by the time we'd come in, the sun would be like coming up. And I just remember, every single time I go, I would just get the biggest smile on my face because in the midst of such poverty, the first thing you heard was music. They all guitars, people out talking, because they had formed such community too when they didn't, they relied on each other more than, and sometimes also when we go in neighborhoods where there is a lot, people are, in their homes and they've got gates and they've got, but it was so beautiful. Every time I would be there, I would be so struck by what that sounded like. Even it sounded very loving in such simple
Simple, yeah.
conditions.
The simple
such,
happiness.
such simple conditions.
Right. Yeah. And, when I was reflecting on the gospel now, I was thinking, the poor widow comes by and drops in her few small coins, and how that related to the woman in the first reading, how, again, both women had no extras, nothing to spare, and yet gave what she had. And the big picture that I got when I connected these two was, in God's eyes, he values how a person gives.
Mm.
I think that's where that importance lies. And it's about the attitude and the intentions of the heart. And that a giving attitude is more important than the amount given. And these two widows that we read about in the Sundays, they gave what little they had from a spirit of generosity and sacrificial giving. And that ultimately, that all came out of trust. That all came out of trust. And, that's what I really pulled together when I looked at the bigger picture.
That's good. Trust. I mean, that resonates. That's the piece that has to be with it. Is do we trust God? I mean, it's and we never know until we really get there. We have to. I mean, it's yeah. No,
I think that's what shakes our rational humanity sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just like we shake on that. Like, well, what if I do give it away and nothing is there?
Yeah.
And that's always something we balance in our minds as well.
And how easy it is to trust when the water is calm. And then when we get the trials in our life, we get the shaky knees and our faith is, shaking around and, but it's those times that our faith really grows, through those trials. And, of course, easier said than done, but we have to rely on those promises that he gives us, and that he doesn't, he never abandons us. He never leaves us. And God is sovereign. He is in control. He knows yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He's got the whole picture. So, in our terms, all we can see is this moment, but we got to leave that up to him.
Yeah.
Not easy to do.
Yeah.
Believe me.
The Provident Father, right?
Yeah.
They say that God is never outdone in generosity, huh? And I always hear that too. And it's good to be reminded of that in our own lives, like when we maybe are inspired. And God doesn't want us, I don't think, to go and give away everything and not be able to take care of our families. I don't think this is the invitation that God has for us. But he wants us to respond, I think, to when the Spirit does ask us to give in those moments of trust. It doesn't mean we just go out and dump our bank accounts on the street and say, here we go. That's also an imprudent usage of the gifts that God has given us. But are we aware enough of when the Spirit is prompting us in those moments, like there's a need here and God is calling me to respond in that moment? So I think it's all about like our attentiveness to the Father as well, and his direction in giving. It's not just give however we want and pour it out or whatever, but like when we're inspired in that way. Teresa, have you ever experienced a moment when God has taken care of you, maybe through your family or through an experience in your life?
Sometimes when I'm sick, I pray, and then maybe a few days later I get a little better.
Beautiful. So I feel like God is caring for you in those moments. So he says, he's blessed are the sick, huh? Because they will be cared for, huh?
And sent people to care for you, like your family, and yeah.
Beautiful. How about you, Mariana?
When I go to school and it's math time and I can't figure out the problems, sometimes I just take a moment, and then the next moment I just know the answer.
Just take a moment to invite God into it, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. I think he's probably like the best mathematician, huh? Like figure out
Help!
all of this whole system he put together here. Who knows how it all works? I guess he does, right? Cool. Those are beautiful. Thank you. So awesome. I think today's readings too, as we continue in this month of November, can make us pause and think of just the generosity that God has given us, and asking us in our hearts, like, what is my response to that? How am I being asked to give something for others to have? Part of, I think, call in my life, I feel, is a simplicity. Like God's calling me to live a more simple life. And they say that priests are supposed to live simply so that others can simply live. And I think that's an invitation for everyone. And the poverty of like the CFR brothers and all of the religious communities around the world are kind of supposed to be that example. And not just for them, but for all of us to follow in that way. Like, what do we really need? And I think so much of our world problems come from that we want more than we need.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. In many ways, in my life too. Like, do I really need a new phone? No, I don't. It's working just fine,
Right.
But it looks really cool, and I definitely want that. Looks fun to have, And we kind of all in our lives like that. There was a family a couple weeks back who came in, and she was talking about an experience she had of hearing about some people in a different country who had to brush their teeth with like sticks because they didn't have toothbrushes, And she was just flabbergasted at the fact that she'd have to replace her toothbrush so many times. When she was like, they don't even get toothbrushes; they just get sticks to brush their teeth with. And I think that's such a important something to keep always in our mind, of how blessed we are, but also that God wants us to, always ask that question, like, is this really something I need, God, or is this something that I want in those ways?
And it seems too like when you meet those people who are really living that authentically, like that's who they are. I mean, there's such a peace and they're very attractive. People who are living simply. I mean, you walk away there's just a fullness and something.
It's a freedom.
Yeah, a freedom.
And you're
a
like,
freedom.
You're like, I
yes.
want that. Like that. That's one of the reasons CFRs were so attractive to me, is because they were free and they were happy too. Like there was a happiness that came from their freedom too. It's like, oh man, I'm not burdened by protecting these things or managing them. Even, I guess the more wealth you have, the more you have to manage it too.
Well, the other day, I think we were cleaning out the garage, and we have all this stuff in the garage, and it occurred to me, I said, why do we have so many things? And there's certain things there that are still, that when we moved about 6 years ago, we kept in boxes, and we placed in the garage, and here we are 6 years later, and we still have those things in the garage.
In the boxes?
In the boxes.
Yes.
And I'm thinking,
They're
gosh.
still closed
And they're
with
still-
the,
and-
with the
and
masking tape.
Clearly, there's really no need to have these items because they're still in the box. But yet here we are accumulating all these things because, for whatever reason, we just believe that we need to have these things.
I know there is this kind of, and I'm sure you guys have seen it, but these tiny houses.
Oh, yeah.
That's a whole new, and when it's really interesting when they interview the people who have made the choice, because they all talk about wanting to have more time with their family, just that they were spending the pace of just going to provide, they were gone, so many hours of the day, just, so now we managed to get the smaller home that maybe we can pay for outright, and we'll be home at home more. And it does seem like when I watch them, I mean, I'm like, part of me is like, okay, could not, you go back and forth, but a freedom, definitely just a freedom in making a decision like that. And
my sister wants to convert our old van into this
tiny house.
this tiny house that drives around and goes so that she can go, and she loves camping and hiking and all of these things, and she would be totally content with living out of that van. I swear. She kind of a hippie though. I love her, but she's kind of a hippie, But even I was the same way. Like when I moved back from seminary, like you just don't realize how much stuff you can accumulate over a number of years. I went to seminary with one car, a little car, Yaris, full of my stuff, and I was like, okay, I probably won't get much more stuff than this. Oh man, it took weeks to go through that stuff and get rid of it and be like, and then I had to send some stuff home with my parents who came up for my graduation. I was like, this is too much. And some of my books and things are still at my parents' house in boxes, closed a year and a half later.
what tape?
I should probably read some of those, but
Yeah.
yes, closed. And
Yeah.
I don't think they've been open
Yeah.
since. But that's a challenge, huh? Is like asking ourselves that question, like,
well, why do we have all these things? And actually, I was thinking maybe we should become minimalist. Just do away with a lot of these things because we don't really need so many things. I was telling Julia too that during Jesus's time, I don't think people had a lot of clothes, right? I mean, you look at our closets.
Yeah.
Really, do we really need all these clothes? And during his time, maybe if they were lucky, they may have an extra pair of, I don't know, robe or two, I guess. That's all they had, right?
Yeah.
And not so
Sandals.
many choices. All
Yeah.
that's overwhelming. I mean, it's it just the simplicity of. I remember this young man that was in that I knew in ministry, and he had graduated from Notre Dame, and then he had gone into a missionary field, and he went 2 years and lived in Honduras in an orphanage, and he was telling me that the simplicity, leaving here and going there.
Yeah.
He felt it was very easy for him to kind of detox, and he barefoot, I mean, he's, and there was just, yeah, but he said the training they have for them is much more focused on not so much coming there, but coming back here, that's where they struggle more because you get in a pace and you just let go of a lot, and then you want to keep that, but then once you get back, how do you live that again as soon as you
Come back.
I have
Yeah.
one pair of shorts and one pair of
Yes.
shoes. One of the benefits of being a priest, though, is I get to wear one outfit every day, so this is good. But there's still many of the outfits in the.
Do you guys have uniform at their school? No, okay.
It's a gift from God, actually. I think a uniform is one of those things. It's just like I don't have to choose what I wear
Yeah.
in the morning,
Yeah.
to get it all together. Beautiful reflections. Is there anything else that we'd like to talk about in regards to the gospel or readings today?
No, I just Teresa had a little.
Well, I do have a question
Oh,
for
yeah.
Father Tim really quickly.
Yeah.
So I was curious because as I was reading the gospel, about the widow and not having any money, and she gave her last 2 coins. Would she have given? Let's say if the woman, the widow, had money and she was very wealthy, would she have given all her wealth, or would she have thought twice about what she's going to give? I mean, because it's so easy when somebody, well, I don't know if I should say it's easy, but when somebody doesn't have much to give and they give what they can versus somebody who has a lot and they're, like we were talking about survival mode and they're
Yeah.
protecting what they have, it's kind of difficult, right? Because, it's just a totally different, I think it's just 2 different things, right?
Yeah. I think she'd probably be in a similar situation of the Pharisees who had much and they would just give kind of out of their surplus per se is kind of mostly how this is interpreted. Widows of that time were inherently poor though. And they were kind of would live, they were the poor of the widows and orphans of that time. And really one of the earliest missions of the church was to care for the widows and orphans. And so the reason the diaconate in the church was founded actually was to serve at table, which was to make sure that the orphans and the widows had food to eat and to care for them. And so that's very interesting. I think peace. But I think also part that what strikes me about the widow is that when you have very little, you know where it's coming from. You're closer to the source. When you have so much, you forget that it's all from God. Like she probably knew very immediately where that came from. Those 2 coins she had,
Right.
She might have gotten it from somebody else, or she might have, in her need, she was given it and she was able to give it away. Then, I think when we have so much, we start to think that it's ours and I did something for this. And the widow could be in a place of saying, I did nothing for this. I don't know where it came from even. It was given to me out of someone else's generosity and I'm going to give it out of generosity here. But when we
Right.
have a lot of stuff, sometimes we can think, I did this, I deserve this, I worked hard for this, so therefore I need to protect it. And I think that's a difference in mentality too that God is trying to come across. So it's maybe not so much because the I think it's like you said, the attitude of giving as well. This gratitude type giving, like this, like acknowledging how much God has given us, and then responding from that place, rather than saying like, "Here's all that I have, and I've make a calculated decision to give this." Then kind of. Lots of different ways to look at this one as well,
Well, this story does remind me of that current news story that you guys probably heard about the homeless man that gave his last $20 bill to this lady who ran out of gas. and she started a GoFundMe
Oh,
for
I
him,
didn't know.
and
Okay.
they raised $300,000. But then the couple her and her husband ended up keeping the money and
Oh
spending
my
it,
gosh.
and the homeless fellow had to take him to court. I mean, it turned into such a
I remember
debacle,
that.
right?
I saw that recently. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just how that kind of excess just corrupts, or kind
Right.
of
And
makes
as
us.
parents, I mean, it's so important because we really are developing our kids as givers or not, I mean, selfishness, all that kind of stuff is really, they're really, learn that from us, and so there's a responsibility there too, and so many times, homeless people on the side of the road, how are we talking? How are we, just that whole, all those conversations. I feel like as we're forming conscience in our kids, it's so important for us to be mindful of that and and thoughtful of that. That our homes, our cars, all those things are classrooms that we're kind of teaching, especially about like treating and helping others and what's enough and how do we give. And it's funny because I'll never forget my son Joseph. Like we were at mass and there were some Maryknoll missionaries there, and and I hadn't seen Maryknoll missionaries, and I remember we had the booklet in our house always growing up, and I used to like to kind of page through it, and that's one of the things, if you're part of their group, you get the monthly magazine. And so they got up and spoke, and then they took up collection. You could sign up to be a part. And so my son, I was filled out an envelope and put it in, I was passing it, and it passed by him, and he took it out, and I'm like, we're having this argument in the pew. I'm like, put it in. It's not your money. It's my money. Okay. No. And he's like, no. And so I'm like, put it in the basket. Okay. And so, so we get outside. I'm like, what was that about? And he's like, Mom, I mean, like, do you know where that money's going? I mean, he's an accountant, man. He is in his head a lot, and I mean, and, I want you to look more, when you give our money like that, you need to look at like how these organizations are, and I was just like, oh, whoa. So all those, as in our kids, especially becoming young adults, and they're just constant conversations we have to be having.
Amen. Yeah. One of the things, a hard right turn here. One of the things we love our families to share, as well as a tradition you have as a family that helps bring faith and family together in your home. Something you can do, if it can be weekly, yearly, monthly, however frequent, but just something that you love doing together that really kind of brings the Lord together with you guys. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Well, I'll share two things that we do. One, we have a little daily devotional.
Nice.
And dinner time, believe it or not, this is a true fact. Dinner time is the one time of day that all four of us are actually in the same location.
Glory to God in the highest. It happens still?
I know. And it's only for about 20 minutes,
Yeah, but that's
But between homework and activities and coming home from commuting and me cooking and, it's like, okay, we're here at the table together.
well,
So we have a little devotional book,
So
which
good.
is just fun, and it's geared toward kids, so they get it, and we can talk about it.
What's it
And
called?
Jesus Calling
Okay.
Oh yeah,
for-
that's good. Yeah,
for
Yeah,
kids.
It's good to let some of our
Yeah.
friends know.
Yeah.
Do you know who publishes it?
Oh, rats! It's very
You can Google it. Jesus
very
Calling
famous.
Devotional. That's
She
It's
does.
out
She
there.
does a
Yeah.
whole series of Jesus Calling.
I think I've seen that actually.
Yeah.
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 And then the one other thing which is fascinating that my daughter actually came up with, we have a children's Bible. She takes it to Mass on Sunday. She looks in the Missal Ed for the readings. She'll go to her Bible, look up the books, and then she has these little sticky tabs. First reading, post-it note. Second reading, post-it note. Gospel, post-it note. So she's getting in the Bible. She's figuring out where these books are.
Yeah.
She's familiarizing herself. She's looking up the verses, and I'm like, and then when the readings are read, there she is following along.
Yeah. That's
Yes, that is
you,
all God.
You probably know more about the Bible than most Catholics do. Huh?
yeah.
Sometimes like, where's that book at? I'm like, It's in the New Testament.
God's holy word. Like, we need to be in the word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's so beautiful because all those things are going to be a part of what they'll bring into their families, you know? Yeah. No, I
Yeah,
mean, and I
totally.
think that's like
Absolutely.
90, I mean, I think it's almost a done deal. You know, I mean, it's if you're doing it and it's a regular practice, it's something that they will, you know, no, I do not believe any tradition goes void. You know, I feel like it.
Do you like doing that, Mariana?
Yes.
Is that cool? Do you get a different part of the Mass on when you're kind of engaging it?
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. I want to encourage everyone who's your age or any age, really. I should be doing that too, you know?
It's
Now I
really
have
fun.
to ask, what are each of your favorite dinners that your mom cooks?
My favorite is spaghetti with meatballs and salad.
Ooh,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
My favorite is mac and cheese.
nice. Simple. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. See, that's good inculcating it.
Oh, I'm so glad you guys are able to somehow keep doing that.
Keep doing that
yeah.
as much as you can. Glory to
Yeah.
God. I do that every Thursday. I'm intentional about that with my family. Like I go home on my day off and
Oh, wow.
cook dinner, and they eat dinner a lot with each other. Thank God, it still happens in the house still.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as people are home and things, but that dinner table is such an important place just to be with each other.
Exactly.
I mean, nothing that's too profound has to happen there besides the acknowledgement that I'm not alone,
Yeah.
and that we have each other and we're a family and all that. So, well, thanks so much for coming out today and spending your Saturday afternoon with us.
Thank you.
Hopefully you enjoyed it.
Mhm.
Yeah, awesome. The smiles and the nods. That's good. I see that we have here a poem that we'd like to read to conclude. Would you like to read that, Teresa?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, she
What's-
actually made this
Did
little
you?
frame.
With little seashells on it? Nice. And what's the poem called?
It doesn't really have a name.
Footprints, right?
It's just I made it at a church camp.
Nice.
My precious, precious child, I love you and I would never leave you during your times of trial and suffering. When you only see one set of footprints in the sand, it was then that I carried you.
Beautiful. And we thank
Okay, can
God
I
for his
become a part of your
providence.
family?
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe come over for dinner. You guys are just in Seal Beach, right?
You're always invited.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it has been awesome. Just, yeah, getting to know you.